Today I will tell a paranormal story of my subscriber about Snapchat. You will hardly be able to sleep after hearing it. If you have heard a similar story, please write about it in the comments. I've never been big on social media. Facebook felt too public, Instagram too fake. But Snapchat? It seemed simple, quick pics, temporary messages, nothing lingering too long. That's why one boring Thursday night I downloaded it. I wasn't expecting anything special. Just figured I'd see what the hype was about. I added a couple friends, messed around with filters, and almost deleted it right there. Then I got a random request. Add me, Wraith. No profile picture. Just a dark gray ghost emoji next to the username. First I thought it was spam, but curiosity got the better of me. I added them. Almost immediately, a message popped up. Wraith, you new here? I hesitated before replying. Me, yeah, just checking it out. A second later, Wraith, cool. Not many people around here use it. You local? The way he worded it made me pause. How did he know where I was? But then again, Snapchat does have that snap map thing. Maybe he saw my general area. Me, sort of. Small town, middle of nowhere. Wraith, same. Bored as hell tonight. Wanna hang out? Now, normally I'd never agree to meet a stranger off an app. But the way he described the boredom hit deep. Plus, small towns have that kind of false sense of safety. Me? Where? He sent a snap. It was a picture of a dirt path cutting into the woods just outside town. The old Miller's Creek trailhead. The caption read, "Meet me here. I want to show you something crazy." I stared at the snap for a while. The trail wasn't far. Maybe a 10-minute drive. And yeah, it was a little late, around 10:30, but it wasn't like I had anything better to do. So, I grabbed my keys, threw on a hoodie, and headed out. The drive out to Miller's Creek was quiet, too quiet. The kind where your headlights cut through the darkness, and every shadow on the roadside looks like it might move. I told myself I was being paranoid, but still, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. When I pulled up to the trailhead, the place was dead. No cars, no lights, nothing but the gravel crunching under my tires. The woods stood tall and dark ahead, the trail barely visible under the faint glow of the moon. I checked my phone. Me, I'm here. Seconds later, a snap came through. I opened it. It was a photo of the trail I was parked at, only this time I was in it, standing next to my car, staring down at my phone. I whipped my head around. "Hello," I called out, my voice sharp in the stillness. Nothing. Another snap came in. I opened it. Just up the trail. "Hurry before it's gone." The picture was blurry this time, but I could make out the faint outline of trees deeper in the forest and something else. A figure barely noticeable in the shadows. Every instinct I had screamed at me to leave. But then there was that gnawing curiosity, the same thing that got me here in the first place. 5 minutes? I muttered to myself, grabbing my flashlight from the glove box. 5 minutes, then I'm out. The trail swallowed me almost immediately. The trees were thick, their branches clawing at the sky, and the deeper I went, the quieter it got. My footsteps sounded way too loud on the dirt path. I kept checking my phone, waiting for another snap. Then, right on cue, it came. "You're close. Don't stop." The picture showed the trail again, but now the figure was clearer. Tall, slender, standing just off the path, half hidden by the trees. A cold sweat crept down my back. I was about to turn around when I heard it. Twigs snapping, maybe 20 feet ahead. "Wraith!" I called, my voice cracking. No answer. But another snap came through. I opened it. It was a video this time, only a few seconds long. The camera was low to the ground, creeping toward someone's feet. My feet. The shot was close enough that I could see the dirt on my shoes. I spun around, the flashlight beam slicing through the dark. Nothing. That's when I noticed the battery on my phone had dropped fast, down to 12%, even though I charged it before leaving. The next snap rolled in. "You shouldn't have come here alone." My throat went dry. The words glared back at me. "You shouldn't have come here alone." I spun in a slow circle, the flashlight beam jerking across tree trunks and tangled underbrush. Every branch looked like it could be hiding someone. Every gust of wind sounded like breath behind my ear. "All right, man. Not funny," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm done. I'm heading back." No response. I shoved my phone into my pocket and started back down the trail, moving faster now, my boots sliding on loose gravel. But the woods suddenly felt different, like they'd grown thicker. The trail I just walked twisted strangely ahead, the trees leaning in like they were closing me off. Another snap came in. I didn't want to look, but I did. It was a photo of me again. But this time I wasn't alone. There was something behind me, tall, shadowy. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, almost brushing the low-hanging branches above it. I stopped breathing. Slowly, I lifted the flashlight and aimed it over my shoulder. Nothing. Just empty woods. But then, another snap. This one was a video. I hit play. It showed me from behind, walking fast, just like I had been seconds ago. But the camera was closer now, creeping up behind me. I could hear the crunch of my own footsteps, the swish of my jacket. Then, right at the end of the video, the camera tilted upward, like whoever, or whatever, was filming was right behind me. I dropped the phone. Panic surged through me as I grabbed it off the dirt, the screen cracked but still working. I didn't even bother wiping the dust off. I just started running. Branches clawed at my arms. My breath tore out in harsh gasps. I could barely see the trail, but I kept going, convinced that if I stopped for even a second, something would reach out from the dark and drag me off the path. Then my phone buzzed again. Another snap. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I opened it mid-stride. It was a pitch-black image, nothing visible except for one faint line of text at the bottom. "You can't leave until you see it." And below that, the snap map. It showed my Bitmoji, but it wasn't where I was. It was deeper in the woods, far off the trail, the little icon pulsing like it was waiting. Then the phone died. The phone screen went black in my hand, the cracked glass reflecting my panicked face for a split second before it faded completely. "Shit," I hissed, shoving it into my pocket. The air felt heavier now, like the woods themselves were leaning in, listening. My flashlight flickered once, twice, before the beam steadied, though it didn't make me feel any better. I could still picture that snap map in my head. My Bitmoji pulsing deeper into the woods way off the marked trail. "You can't leave until you see it." It echoed in my head over and over. I should have left. I wanted to leave. But my feet stayed planted. It was like some invisible thread was tugging me forward, that same pull that had gotten me out here in the first place. 5 minutes, I whispered again, like it was some kind of magic spell that would keep me safe. I stepped off the trail. Immediately, the ground felt different, softer, like it hadn't been walked on in years. The underbrush grabbed at my legs, the flashlight beam jittering over twisted roots and broken branches. The deeper I went, the colder it got. My breath came out in white clouds now, even though it had been mild when I first got here. Every sound felt amplified, the crunch of my boots, the creak of distant branches, the soft, almost rhythmic tapping from somewhere ahead. I told myself it was probably just a tree branch swaying in the wind. But my grip tightened on the flashlight anyway. Then I saw it. A clearing. The trees thinned out, opening into a wide, moonlit space. Right in the center stood an old wooden structure, half collapsed, like it hadn't been touched in decades. It looked like an old hunting blind, or maybe a watchtower. The kind of thing that shouldn't still be standing. But that wasn't what made my stomach drop. Hanging from the beams, swaying gently in the breeze, were dozens of Polaroid photos clipped to thin wires like a twisted art project. They fluttered in the cold air, their glossy surfaces catching the moonlight. I stepped closer. The photos weren't old. Some of them were of the trail, others of cars parked at the trailhead. But then I saw them, the ones that made my hands go cold. Photos of people. All of them looked like they'd been caught off guard, walking, talking, tying their shoes. None of them were smiling. Most of them didn't even seem to know they were being photographed. Except for the last one. I reached up and pulled it down. It was a photo of me, standing at the edge of this exact clearing. The photo had been taken seconds ago. I didn't even have time to turn around before I felt the breath on the back of my neck. I froze. That breath, hot, damp, way too close, brushed the back of my neck like someone was standing right there. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt locked in place, heavy and useless. Then, from somewhere behind me, a voice, low, rasping, whispered, "You saw it." I spun around, the flashlight beam jerking through the clearing. Empty. The photos above me swayed harder now, like the wind had picked up, their edges flicking against each other with soft, rapid snaps. But there was no wind. The air was dead still. I backed away, my heart hammering in my chest when I noticed something on the ground near the base of the wooden structure. Footprints. Deep ones. Heavy. They weren't mine. They circled the clearing in wide arcs, stopping right where I had been standing seconds ago, right behind me. I stepped back again, but my boot crunched onto something brittle. I glanced down. More Polaroids, half buried in the dirt. I bent down and brushed the loose soil away. These were different. In these photos, the people weren't caught mid-step or unaware. They were all looking directly at the camera. Faces pale, eyes wide. Some were crying. Some were screaming. All of them were deep in these woods. I rifled through the stack with shaking hands until I found the worst one. A man, maybe in his 30s, sat slumped against a tree, his face slack, eyes glassy. A smear of something dark streaked down his forehead. On the bottom edge of the photo, written in thick black marker, was one word: found. That's when I realized these weren't just random pictures. They were trophies. I scrambled to my feet, the flashlight swinging wildly, and sprinted for the trees. Branches clawed at my face and arms, but I didn't care. I ran until my lungs felt like they were tearing apart, until I couldn't hear the soft snapping of Polaroids behind me anymore. But then, buzz. My phone, dead minutes ago, vibrated in my pocket. I yanked it out. The screen flickered weakly to life, battery somehow sitting at 5%. A single new snap. I opened it. It was a blurry image, taken from high above, as if someone was watching from the treetops. In the center of the frame was me, sprinting through the woods. But what made my stomach drop wasn't just that. It was the shape following me. Tall, thin, unnaturally long arms. And it was closing the gap fast. I didn't stop running. Every time my foot hit the ground, I swore I could hear another set of footsteps. Heavier, slower, but closer than they should have been. The sound of twigs breaking under something big. The flashlight beam bounced wildly ahead of me, barely catching the edges of trees before I dodged past them. My breath burned hot in my throat, but I didn't dare slow down. Another buzz from my pocket. Another snap. I shouldn't have looked. I know I shouldn't have, but my fingers moved on their own. Pure panic making my thoughts scatter. I opened the snap mid-stride. This one was clearer, taken from behind me again. But now, that figure, it wasn't in the distance anymore. It was right there, looming just feet away. The thing's face, or what I thought was its face, was nothing but a pale blur, like the camera couldn't focus on it. Long fingers curled out from its sides, thin and bony, reaching. I shoved the phone back into my pocket and pushed harder, my legs screaming. Ahead, the woods thinned, an opening, maybe the edge of the trail. I didn't think. I aimed for it. But as I reached the clearing, something cold and sharp grazed my shoulder, yanking me sideways. I hit the ground hard, my flashlight skidding out of reach, its beam landing crookedly on the trees. Lying there, the breath knocked out of me, I dared to look back. And I saw it. Half in the shadows, tall and gaunt. Its limbs bent in ways that didn't look right, like someone had snapped them and forced them back together. Its head tilted, jerky and stiff, and though it had no clear eyes, I knew it was looking right at me. I stepped forward. I scrambled backward on my hands and heels, leaves and dirt scraping into my palms. Then buzz. The phone again. I yanked it out. A new snap. No picture this time. Just text. If you leave now, you'll never stop seeing me. I stared at the message, my chest heaving. Another buzz. Or finish what you started. I didn't even know what that meant. But then I saw it. Something lying near the base of a tree, half buried under leaves. An old, rusted Polaroid camera. The same one that had taken all the pictures. Somehow, I knew what I had to do. I dove for it. My fingers closed around the cold metal of the camera, the rust flaking off against my palm. It was heavier than I expected, solid, old, like it hadn't been used in years. But somehow, I knew it still worked. The thing was closer now. I could hear its breathing, ragged, wet, each inhale rattling like it was pulling in the cold night itself. I lifted the Polaroid with shaking hands and aimed it right at the towering figure. Click. The camera whirred, loud in the dead air. spitting out a fresh photo that slowly slid free. But the creature didn't stop. It lunged. I scrambled backward, the photo still developing in my hand, the edges curling slightly from the damp air. I watched as the image faded into view. Slow, pale outlines darkening into shapes. First the trees, then me, then it wasn't there. The creature wasn't in the photo. I looked up. It stood right in front of me, so close I could see the way its thin skin stretched over jagged bone. Its face a pale smear of nothingness. Long, skeletal fingers reached out, almost gentle, like it was about to pluck the camera from my hands. But then I noticed something. Tucked into the corner of the Polaroid was faint, scratched text. "Catch it in the frame." My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the camera. I stood up fast, ignoring the screaming pain in my ankle, and took a few stumbling steps back, trying to get its entire body into view. The thing didn't rush me. It just tilted its head, curious, like it wanted me to take the picture. I raised the Polaroid again. This time I made sure the full shape fit into the frame. Click. The flash burst in the dark, blinding bright. The creature let out a sound, high-pitched, almost human, but twisted before its body blurred like something tearing through static. Its long arms flailed upward, clawing at the air, then its whole form flickered, once, twice, before it shattered into dust. I stared at the empty space where it had been, my breath ragged. The new Polaroid slid out of the camera. I picked it up. This one was different. It didn't show the woods, or me, or even the clearing. It showed rows and rows of Polaroids, hundreds of them, each pinned to a wall, all of strangers with hollow eyes. And in the very center, there was a fresh one. Of me. My face pale, wide-eyed, staring right into the lens. And underneath, in dark ink, "Found." The word "found" felt like a punch straight to my chest. I turned the Polaroid over in my hands, hoping for, I don't know, anything, some clue that this was just a sick joke. But it was blank. Smooth. Cold. The woods had gone eerily silent. No wind. No distant crickets. Just that oppressive stillness, like the entire forest was holding its breath. I shoved the photo into my pocket and limped back toward the trail, the Polaroid camera still gripped tight in my other hand. Every so often I'd flick the flashlight around, half expecting that thing to snap back into existence. But nothing moved. No more snaps. No more whispers. Just the long, slow walk back to my car. It was still there, waiting at the trailhead, headlights catching the edge of the trees like a safe zone. I didn't waste time. I yanked the door open, threw the camera on the passenger seat, and peeled out, tires spitting gravel. I didn't stop driving until I was halfway home, hands shaking so bad I could barely keep them on the wheel. That's when my phone, dead not even 20 minutes ago, buzzed softly in my pocket. I didn't want to look. But of course I did. The screen flickered to life, battery somehow at 40%, like it had never died at all. One new snap. I opened it. It was my house. A shot from across the street, taken just minutes ago. My front door in the center of the frame. The porch light still on. No caption. Nothing but that chilling familiarity of knowing someone had been there, waiting. My stomach twisted as I realized what it meant. It wasn't over. Not even close. I killed my headlights a block from my house. If someone or something was still nearby, I didn't want to announce my return. The snap of my house still burned in my head. That perfect angle from across the street, like whoever took it had been there for a while, watching. I coasted the car to a stop and sat in the dark for a minute, breathing hard, ears straining for anything, footsteps, a door creaking, hell, even crickets. But it was dead silent. I finally forced myself out of the car, the cool night air rushing over my sweat-soaked hoodie. The Polaroid camera sat on the passenger seat, heavy and useless. I didn't bring it with me. I didn't want it in my house. The porch light flickered as I approached, which felt way too cliché for comfort. I jiggled my keys, fingers trembling, and shoved open the door. Home. The smell of stale coffee. The soft hum of the fridge. But something felt off. Like the walls were holding their breath. I locked the door behind me, every deadbolt sliding into place, before pulling out my phone. The last snap, the one of my house, was still there. I zoomed in, squinting at the dark shapes in the background. Nothing obvious. But then, as I panned across the photo, I saw it. In the upper left corner, faint but clear, my living room window. And in the window's reflection? A tall, thin silhouette. Inside. A wave of cold shot through me. I didn't even turn around. I bolted for the kitchen, grabbed the biggest knife I could find, and spun back, my eyes darting to the living room. Empty. Or so it seemed. But then my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look. But I did. New snap from Wraith. It auto-opened before I could stop it. This time, it was a picture of my hallway inside my house. The angle was low, like someone had crouched to take it. At the end of the hall, the faint outline of my bedroom door. And the caption. Almost there. A floorboard creaked above me. I live alone. The sound of that creak above me, slow, deliberate, froze me in place. My grip tightened around the kitchen knife, the handle slick with sweat. Another creak. Whatever was up there, it was moving. I backed toward the staircase, forcing shallow breaths, my ears straining for more sounds. The air felt thick, heavy, like the house itself was waiting. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I had to. Another snap. This one was darker, grainy, like it had been taken in low light. The image, the top of my staircase, empty. But the caption? Look up. My heart jackhammered in my chest as I raised my head. First, I didn't see anything. But then, just beyond the railing, long, pale fingers curled over the edge, followed by the slow rise of a shape, tall and thin, its head tilting in that same jerky way I'd seen in the woods. I didn't think. I ran. Straight for the front door, fumbling with the locks, throwing them open so fast the keys clattered to the floor. I burst onto the porch, the cool night air hitting me like a slap, and sprinted to my car. The Polaroid camera still sat on the passenger seat. I snatched it up as I peeled out of the driveway, tires screaming against the pavement. No plan, no destination, just away. Miles down the road, I finally pulled over, chest heaving, hands shaking. The camera felt heavier now, like it knew something I didn't. I hesitated, then raised it to my face and took one last picture, aiming it straight into the dark woods that bordered the road. Click. The photo spat out, the chemical scent strong in the cold air. I waited. Slowly, the image developed. Trees, the empty road, and then there it was, that figure, standing just beyond the treeline, watching. I flipped the photo over. For words, scrawled in the same dark ink as before. You took it home. My phone buzzed one last time. A snap. No photo. Just a message. See you soon. And with that, the screen went dark for good.